City Public Schools families and friends. Welcome to our third, count 'em three, family virtual town hall meeting. Usually we have our esteemed CEO, Dr. Sonia Brookins Santelises with us. She sends her greetings, but she also is entitled to a vacation, which she's taking at this moment. But we got the next best thing. We have our Chief Academic Officer slash Chief of Schools, John Davis. Chief Davis, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right.
And as a special twist for this evening, our students will be hosting a portion of our town hall because they're a voice that most certainly needs to be heard given Monday's announcement. So we have Bryce Taylor here as my co-host tonight. Bryce, how you feeling?
I'm feeling great. I can't wait to get into it. I'll be back in later in 20 minutes to talk about that.
Excellent. Before we get started, Monday, we made the big announcement that we'll be starting the school year virtually. Chief Davis will talk about that in a second. But no doubt that you want to be heard, and so do our students. So tonight, we're going to dedicate a significant portion of the event to creating space for our students to share their thoughts and their feelings. We've had 3 town halls, or this is a third one. We want to give our students a chance to express themselves. But no doubt some of their questions are the same questions you have and that we'll attempt to answer tonight. If you have a question and you're viewing us on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter, simply type in your question in the comments section. If we have time to answer it, you'll make it up to me and we'll make our best pass at answering it. For those that we're not able to answer, we'll do our best to post an update on the district website on the reopening page, www.baltimorecity.schools.org/reopening. So to get us started with some comments and a great presentation, Chief Davis, you have the floor.
Thank you, Andre. And I want to say good evening to everyone. And I want to start off, I think it's going to be a great evening and a great town hall, especially when we get to hear from our young people. Too often it's an adult-laden conversation, and we all, as a society, as a city, as everyone, have to do more to listen to our young people, and I'm glad they're here today. I want to appreciate them for stepping up and asking questions and letting us hear what's going to be on their mind for the next 40 minutes or so. Of course, we made an announcement on Monday that the district will start in an all distance learning or an all virtual space. That's a really big deal. And it comes with a lot of review, a lot of engagement, and frankly, a lot of seriousness. One of the things that I've said any chance I get in front of the public is that I want to appreciate our families for sticking with us during this time. They stuck with us during spring when we were just getting everything off the ground and the virus started. And I feel like it's the same thing now. But I know that people want to see a different experience in the virtual space in September, and we're going to deliver that. Let me be super clear. But I also just want to step back for a second and let the public know how serious we take these types of decisions, right? The idea of going in an all virtual space through distance learning versus bringing students in and some type of hybrid so that there is some face-to-face, it's an incredibly difficult situation. It's an incredibly complex situation, and you don't always see it. But I'm just going to say that our teams are working around the clock so that we're prepared and so that we're ready to answer questions. But frankly, since we just made the announcement, while we were doing a lot of planning before the announcement, we don't always have all the answers, and they will roll out literally over the next weeks with the amount of details that I think everyone expects. But that same grace and mercy that we had with each other in the spring, I've got to ask that over the next few weeks as we solidify the details that I know people want to see. I think a decent amount of those details will come about on July 28th during our board meeting presentation, where we go over a lot of different aspects of the distance learning space. But I just want the public to know how difficult of a decision this is, how complex it is, and how the decision then rolls out to a lot more that we have to provide. We know that. And we're working, again, it is not just an exaggeration to say we're working around the clock and we're working through the weekends to get to all the points about what a schedule will look like, what a student schedule will look like, what a teacher schedule will look like, what families can expect, how are we going to orient families so that they're ready to be successful in September, what does grading look like, what does attendance look like, what does the curriculum look like, what are the programs that we're going to use. I literally could go on and on. But it is going to still take another minute. And if that is unsatisfying, I will apologize for that. But at the same time, I know that we are going to get there. And in the end, we are working incredibly hard. And I need for the public to know that. So I appreciate all of the families that have stuck with us. And I'm going to ask that same grace for a little while longer until we nail this out. But we will be ready for September 8th. Make no mistake about that. And we're having these town halls just to be as transparent as possible with all the questions that you have. It's difficult for myself as a leader. If I was back being a principal like I was in Baltimore City Public Schools, it would be difficult if I don't have the answers. So at times that's tough, but I'd rather be straight and honest with everyone and know that we are working towards those answers than trying to just come up with something that doesn't make sense on the fly. So we're going to be as straight as we absolutely can and as we absolutely are. These virtual town halls are really meant to do that. And when we have the answers and when we can provide the details, we will absolutely do that. But again, I want to assure the public that we are working towards September 8th. We are working to having great development with our principals and with our teachers so that they're ready and so that September 8th is a different experience for everyone. I'm quite confident that that's what's going to happen. But in the next, I don't know what it is. Some people have said it's 50 days. I don't think I'm counting them down just yet. But in these 50 days, we will be ready. And with that, let's start into the slides. Yep. So we're going to talk about some of the fall reopening details and kind of how we got to the announcement. Right. We are going to start in an all learning and an all virtual space, and that's what you see right here. But I want to be very clear that we're starting with that with the idea that that will give us more time to get ready for the hybrid model. The hybrid model is very complex. How you bring in students in a safe manner. I want to be super clear that I've been to some of our summer school sites and I've already seen a lot of great safety measures. The kids obviously have their masks on. They're taking it seriously. Our teachers are taking it seriously. So we're already a little bit into that mode of figuring out what that hybrid model looks like, but we want to give it more time. And let me not mince words, right? Students in front of teachers in the more traditional approach is what we want to get to, but we're going to do that in a safe way and we're going to do that in a healthy way. And by starting all virtual, it gives us the time to do that. So please understand that that's the mode that we want to get to, but we're going to take some time to really get there. I also want to be clear that I think, I talked about the seriousness in my very opening remarks. Part of that seriousness is just the fact that I think there are a lot of people with varied opinions on that. And we took a lot of time to read over our input from our families, the input from our teachers, the input from all stakeholders, the input from our students to try to make this the best decision possible. So this will give us more time, and we're confident that we're going to start positively in the virtual space, but we need that time and we'll use it appropriately to eventually get to that hybrid model. Because make no doubt about it, that connection between students and teachers that happens in the real live space is very, very important. Too many of our students have been in their house for too long. Right, and that same type of environment that you see in a school between peers, between their teacher, really is the best environment for learning. So we want to get there. We're confident we will get there, and we're going to move towards there while starting off in a virtual space. Let's go. Here's the calendar, right? The announcement was just made around the reopening plan. That July 28th date, I want to call out again because we will present a lot more details at the board meeting. Again, right, the announcement was just made on Monday. This is Thursday. So by next Tuesday, we'll have more details that we will provide. Right, and then we'll begin to really focus on having a successful start to the year. We'll begin implementation in September, and at the same time, we'll be able to give more time and effort towards the hybrid planning. And a lot of that is in the health and safety aspects. We're learning a lot in the summer, like I said, but we'll be able to use our facilities and our operations folks to really make sure that our standard operating procedures, which people don't know about, but which we already have and we're using in the summer, but we want to make it as tight as possible so that it is safe and healthy when we return. And then, right, we'll begin to provide next steps by October 16th, right? And so by October 16th, we'll assess how we've done virtually. We'll figure out where we are, right? As you've heard some of the health professionals say, right, the virus always dictates to a large degree what we're doing. And by October 16th, right, that math is what, still 3 months away, right? The world could change a little bit in that time. We know in 3 months, July, August, yes, in 3 months, right, we'll have to reassess. And so I think what we really want to communicate to families is, right, we're going to get back to people in October while we start virtually. If you really look at the school calendar at the bottom, I want to call out a few things. Teachers are going to return back on August 26th. At least that's the proposed calendar. We have to put that in front of the board on Tuesday as well. But at the same time, right, we'll have about 8 days of staff development up until September 4th, and then the first day of school with students will be September 8th. That's a week later than what we originally had planned, but again, that gives us a little bit more time for our schools to be ready for the first day of students. And then again, right, we want to have professional development for staff, professional development for families. We want to really do this right so that we're ready on September 8th, but then we can transition to the hybrid model in a really positive way. So from a very big picture, this is how we're going to progress with the timeline at the top and the school calendar at the bottom. It's also important to kind of review some of the survey results we got from students, right? I feel like the last time we spoke, we talked a lot about staff and families. I think it was pretty positive that if you see that 78% on the right-hand side, 78% of students said their teacher provided help when they needed it, right? And that's not really surprising to me because we have a great core of teachers that provide that help to students. I think the part that that we got to improve upon is that next part, right? 33% of students reported daily or more than once a day contact. I've been starting to say, and really it's every student, every day online, right? We cannot get away from that. Every student, every day online. The virtual space, right, is not going to be as strong as the traditional space, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't try. That doesn't mean that our virtual learning and that structure that we're going to see has been some of the questions. Again, we've seen some questions from students and some feedback about having a more routine schedule. We're going to make that better so that in the end, right, more than 33% of students reported daily or more than once a day contact. I want that 100%. I don't want to kid about that. You can also see some of the things at the bottom, right? 57% of students reported they were happy or satisfied. We got to up that, right? 72% of students said they knew what they were supposed to do. That's good, but even that should be in the 90s. And then 51% of students agreed that they learned a lot, right? We've got to increase that. So the surveys are really helpful. They show that we made some progress. And if you go back to March, I just want to remind everyone that we had to drop everything and completely change our mode of instruction. And I feel like our teachers and schools did a really good job. But when the fall starts, we're going to do better. Here's some student survey results around the fall reopening, right? And again, 48% of students said they were either somewhat or very uncomfortable returning. That means 52%, right, had different results with that, right? For 43%, you can see the bar on the right, said that they were comfortable. And we saw this split, I feel like regardless of what stakeholder group we talked to. And that's just important, right? I need the public to know that there's kind of no real consensus in this area. And that's why starting virtual is the right move. And then students want to be able to choose how they return to school buildings. That makes sense as well. You can see 59% of high school students thought an evening high school option should be offered. So we're going to figure out how to do that. And all of those survey results, I think, are really important. Let's keep going. So here's some open responses that I really want to call out for a second, right? It's interesting. Many comments were about it was easy, but it was also hard, right? It was definitely different. And I think that difference made it kind of hard. But it was also potentially easier for some students because they were doing it from their home and just doing it from home where you kind of feel comfortable. I think for some students was very, very helpful, right? But for others that are used to being in the classroom and want that kind of peer-to-peer experience, again, right, I think some students flourished while some others struggled, and we've got to help all of our students through that. The second one, right, additional help or resources needed, right, laptops and better access, and the consistent daily schedule and more structure. I think when you begin to see the next couple of weeks, we're going to provide, right, schedules and sample schedules as to how the day will go, no matter if you're in high school or if you're in middle school, elementary school, or if you're in our youngest grades, right? That consistency, that organization, those set routines, right, seem to be really important. And I just want to also call out the patience and understanding. I mean, I think we also saw, not just from our students, not just from our high school students, but some of the families as well said, right, we have to have enough flexibility in this. And I'm going to go ahead and digress just a bit. I think one of the things I'm trying to push hard is how we can legally tape just about every one of our lessons so that when a student needs to access them, we don't want to keep all the lessons online, but say the last 5 days, when a family, if they miss their kindergarten student's lesson, they can get that later in the day. Now, we want to push everyone to be online at the same time because it is that experience, that live experience that will promote the best teaching, but we know we have to have some flexibility. And I think that goes to the consistency in the organization. So we want to provide structure and we want to provide flexibility. That's what, I mean, as the chief of schools and as the interim chief academic officer, those things are very near and dear to my heart because we've got to do that for families. We've got to do that for students. And frankly, we've got some older students that are having to work and are having to be very flexible. So believe me, I hear that when students are saying it. Let's go. Oh, I guess we're at questions and discussions. And so I think at that time, Andre, I'm kicking it back to you.
You are, Chief Davis, and thank you a lot for your feedback and for sharing with the audience those results that our students provided to us. Again, tonight's about providing a space for our students to share their thoughts. So leading off with that data is pretty important. But before we go to that segment, Chief Davis, I do have one other thought. One thing that we've heard from our families across all of our mediums is when they hear hybrid, some of them are hearing we're going back on October 16th, as if it's a final decision. Hybrid is an option, correct?
Yeah, that's an option. And on, October 16th, we'll give more details, but not only is it an option, right? We know that when we go hybrid, we have to have a virtual component to that because some families may not want to go. And so we are thinking through what that means, what that virtual continual distance learning means. I don't want to lie to people. It is very complex because if teachers are coming in and teaching, then it's going to be hard for them to also do the virtual space. So we got to figure out how our teachers can do that, right? What we can put in place. But yes, it will be an option whenever we go to hybrid that we've got to have a virtual component for our families.
Thank you, Chief Davis. Now, Bryce Taylor, come on down to the floor. My co-host.
I'm back.
All right. Well, Bryce, you've got the floor for questions for Chief Davis, questions for our team of experts who are not on the screen, and we'll do our best to provide some room. The floor is yours.
Cool beans. Thank you. Well, my name is Bryce Taylor. I was a member of the City School Student Media team for the past 5 years, and I just graduated. And I'm here to talk about and to give you guys the student perspective. So I'm going to bring in about 5 students, Baltimore City Public School students. I'm going to list them off. We have Bernaya, Jalea, Jalen. We also have Niles and Madison. So if they want to cut on their cameras pretty quickly to give a quick wave, they can do that. And we're just here to talk about some of the opinions that we've shared, just to give a quick overview. So that has to do with student accountability. So that means not only do we expect our teachers and school leaders to step up, but our peers, we're expecting our peers to step up just and to take that second step and take that extra step in order to make sure that we can improve the community. It also includes the impact of losing some of our famed activities, whether that be sports or CPE. Also, we have students that give their perspective on how quarantine has actually helped them in their lives positively. They had the time away from school to work on themselves and to work on their personal goals. Also, we also have one student that gives us the perspective from a student that's transferring from 8th grade to 9th grade. We have a former middle schooler, and we also have some questions on the quality of the curriculum. So basically, is it going to be helpful? Is it going to help improve? Are we going to actually gain anything from next year and all the years to come's curriculum with this new hybrid learning, or whatever we choose to do? So with that being said, I think I'm going to jump into one of the topics, and that has to be with losing certain activities, whether that be sports or CTE. I'm going to ask Jalea, could you please turn on your camera so we can talk about that issue? You have Jalea?
I'm here.
All right, Jalea, you want to give yourself a quick introduction right quick?
My name's Jalea. I attend Paul Laurence Dunbar High School, and I am a upcoming junior.
Alrighty, so therefore you should have some opinions on, you should have a lot of opinions right now. So I know for a fact that you may have some opinions when it comes to losing certain activities. So can you tell me, what are some of the extracurricular activities that you partake in school?
So I'm a part of the volleyball team at my school, and the quarantine and the pandemic and stuff, it has taken it away from us, as well as other sports too. And to me, it's like I look forward to playing volleyball or going to practice after school. So it's like harder for me because volleyball was like a stress reliever. And it's like weighing down on a lot of other kids too that play sports, and you can really tell because they're used to being on the field with friends or being on the court with friends, playing, letting out stress, because after you come from school, you need something to do to better your energy, if you had a bad day or anything like that. So losing sports is really hard. Losing everything is hard pretty much.
So explain to me, why is it important that students have that outlet where they could express themselves, or just go after school and have that communal property, whether it be from sports or football or chess team or something like that? Why is it important that students have that?
I feel like it's important because students need that time of the day where they can do something that they enjoy, because like every student isn't good at school. So like school might be stressful for them, so having that time that they do something that they enjoy is something that's needed for students our age.
Now, because you are here, there are actually people here who can answer some of the questions that you may have. So what are some of the questions you have in regards to how sports are going to be handled this school year?
Well, for one, like there hasn't been, I don't think there's been a official like say that there are no sports. So like, will there be sports? I know they were talking about hybrid during October and stuff like that, but will there be sports during that time too, maybe?
Yeah, let me go ahead and jump in there, Jalea. I will start off by saying most of the time, this is a state of Maryland decision, and it's not a Baltimore City decision. So we are working with the state on what that is. As someone who is a father and who has a senior in high school who like wants to run track and wants to play baseball, I want to just be honest with you that like it breaks my heart that you're not playing volleyball. Because you should be playing volleyball. You should be diving on the floor and making the sets and serve in the way that you want to. And that is absolutely horrific, because I know I played sports. A lot of other people did too. So I just want to start off by saying my heart goes out to you. I think what we are thinking through is, if we're not going to have sports, is there at least a way for some of the teams to come in and safely condition, right? If we're not going to have games, can they come in and practice in a safe way? You're right, Jalea, we haven't made that decision yet, so I don't want people running off and saying we're going to do that. But it's just because at least getting on the floor with your teammates and practicing, if it can be done in a safe way, we're trying to consider that. There are states that have already made the decision to push back all of the sports and maybe not start until the winter, or maybe not even start into the spring, and try to do all the sports in the spring. Our state has not said that yet. And so there hasn't been a decision in that way. But at the same time, what I want you to know is we're trying to figure out, is there a way we can come in periodically and do conditioning? Is there a way that we can come in periodically and do any type of practice? And even if we do, I don't want to lie, there has to be a lot of safety precautions that have to be taken, because we're just not going to take it lightly. So I'll tell you that's what the current thinking is. But right now, you're right, it's still on pause.
Thank you so much, Chief Davis. Now, Jalea, another concern of yours and another that we discussed was the dropout rate, because you have a new hybrid model and you have some kids that might lose like the motivation. Also, they also not only that, they have to support their families as well. So if they lost motivation, they think that the new curriculum isn't worth it, they're not really learning anymore, they just go straight into the workforce and they have to support their family. So could you provide some insight onto that, please?
Yeah. So my thoughts were, like, some people do take on jobs since the quarantine and the pandemic has been going on, because they need to support their family or support themselves. And during this time, I was concerned about how they could also go to work to provide for family and provide for themselves, but also be able to do school, because say they have to work at 6 or 7 in the morning, but also one of their classes starts at that time. So will there be a way where schools have like morning classes and afternoon classes for people that do take on jobs to support and provide for their family and themselves?
Yeah, that's exactly right, Jalea. We saw this in the spring, right? Especially high school students. They turned in their assignments all hours of the day and all hours of the night. Sometimes it was just because, right, as an adolescent, they were waking up late, and sometimes it was because they had to work, just like you said. But regardless, right, we do want folks to have a routine schedule and try to follow it as much as possible. But at the same time, we have to record our lessons and we have to provide that work so that it can be done, hopefully without the teacher every single time, right? A teacher has got to be available to teach that lesson every single day, because that will be the best learning. But we have to be flexible so that in the end, if a child or if a, I don't know, a 17, 18-year-old has to work, right? If they have to make something for their family or for themselves, that they can log back on at 6 o'clock at night, 7 o'clock at night, 8 o'clock at night, see the lesson, turn in something to show that they attended, right? They're going to have some responsibility about this to show that they actually, right, just didn't watch it, but they watched the whole thing. I mean, you all are probably used to having exit tickets sometime at the end of a lesson. So maybe you have an exit ticket that you have to answer to show that you were there, and then you can complete the work. So that is something that I feel like we have to knock out of the park to give that flexibility. But frankly, it's not just for the situation that you said, but it could be for our families, for our younger students that maybe just can't get online at the right time, and they have to do that later. So structure we need, but that flexibility has to accompany that structure.
Thank you, Chief David. Jalea, if you have any responses, or just honestly, if you just want to express your opinion on how that made you feel, please go ahead.
I understand the structure. So, and I also understand you saying that they can get on at any time and turn in something to show that they were there and present and that they are paying attention and are doing their work. So, I agree with you.
All right. Thank you so much, Joanne. Now, I think going into that, I think we're going to bring in another one of our students, Bernaya. Do you mind cutting on your camera for me, please? Hi, Bernaya. You want to give everyone a nice, quick introduction?
I'm Bernaya. I go to Baltimore Design, and I'm going to the 11th grade this year.
Alrighty, now, Bernaya, you've expressed some opinions when it comes to we have to hold ourselves accountable and we have to hold our peers accountable, and we know that we have to step up to the plate. So could you express some of the opinions that you have of how, students can, put that extra foot forward, and also how teachers can put that extra foot forward, so therefore we work collaboratively?
Yes, because when we first went on quarantine, it wasn't as easy, and I know me, I was being a little bit lazy about it, and I noticed I had to be accountable for me getting my work done and me turning in my work. And some of my teachers, they like they thought like maybe since we wasn't on quarantine, wasn't as serious. So I felt like they wasn't as serious. I feel like everybody, we should just be more accountable. Also with uh not having internet access or computer access, we can always go to a library. Buses are free now. We can catch the bus, walk, go to a friend's house, anything. Like I just feel like I heard a lot of like my peers in my school talk about how they don't want to do it because it's not as easy or they don't have internet access, but they can easily go to a nearby library or a friend house or at least go to the school to get the laptops because they do provide the computers for the students who aren't as fortunate.
Now, of course, there are ways, but one of the questions that arises is how does city schools plan to accommodate the students that literally they don't have a way to get Wi-Fi, or say they've run out of laptops? How just hypothetically, how do the city schools accommodate those students?
Um, Maybe packets. I think packets will work. I would. I have internet access, and I would rather do a packet rather than online. It's just, I don't know. It's just not as easy. But we can get packets, or how they said. Well, how me and you were discussing the other day about maybe certain students come in, and even students with special need or need tutoring, they can come into the school with for help or anything like that. Like it's only a few students and not like the whole school is going to be there. I feel like extra packets or they can have a small little class or section where they can come in.
Of course, Mr. Rock. Let's see. Okay. Well, Chief Davis, can you give any insight on some of the tech properties or what we have to offer for some of the kids or some of the solutions?
Yeah. Hello, Bernaya. Thank you for jumping on. And I hope you have a good, you're going to be an 11th grader?
Mm-hmm.
Great. And I know the virtual year or the starting off virtually will be different, but I appreciate your honesty about all of that. What I want to say is, right, in the spring and early summer, we gave out 19,000 laptops to students, and we've got more ordered. So not just Brenaya, but anyone who's on here, right, who knows someone who doesn't have a laptop and needs it, they have got to contact their school. In fact, I would even say contact me. I don't care who you contact. We have to get the devices to students that need them. I know we did a lot of advertisement around that. We did a lot of promotion around that. But let's not kid ourselves, right? There's still some families or students that we probably didn't get to. But like, I need for people to know we will have the laptops if young people need them. I think hotspots are a little bit harder, but we are having a lot of our partners help out with that as well, so that we can give out hotspots. So please spread that word and push your peers, push the families, right? If there are families that are watching and you know another family needs something, email me at JL Davis, right? Email your principal, email whoever. We have to get those devices out there. I think, Brenaya, your point about special kids that might need additional support or special needs is something we're having to think through as well, because we're going to start virtual. but we might begin to bring in smaller groups of kids that need that support. So I appreciate you saying that, because, you know, even if it's just in groups of 4 or 5 students, if we know they need the support, then we want to figure out, I don't know, I'm going to make things up right now. Maybe once a week they come in to get support right away and to set them off on a good week before we even go hybrid later in the year. So I think those two things you brought up are 100% spot on.
Thank you so much, Chief Davis. Bernard, you have anything to add or respond?
No, he pretty much covered everything. Thank you.
I'm glad. So it seems like we have Michael Rading coming into. I want to ask, what does that mean for charter schools? If you could come online pretty quickly.
Me? I'm sorry. What'd you say?
You're okay, Bernard.
Oh, sorry.
Hi, so I'm Michael Radding. I am the Director of IT Technical Support Services. In terms of pickup of devices, students and families can pick up devices at the district office on Tuesdays and Thursdays between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. That opportunity has been made available for students that are attending traditional schools. For charter schools, we ask that students and families reach out to the charter school leadership just to find out how they intend to support students during this time, because they're developing plans for their students and families.
Thank you so much. Now I'm going to bring in another student. Jalen, do you mind cutting on your camera? All right, Jalen, can you give a quick introduction pretty quickly?
My name is Jalen Hargrove. I attend Mervo, and I do music on my free time.
All righty. So, Jalen, we discussed your perspective is a little bit different, aside from everyone else that we've been talking to. You have completely benefited, and you want to talk about how sometimes being away from school and how this quarantine has actually helped you further your personal life, and then being away from the education, having that time to actually really perfect your craft, or having friends that just thrive outside of the school, outside of school. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes. Quarantine helped me a lot because it gave me time to focus on myself and build myself up. Like it gave me time away from school, time away from like the after school programs. It helped me out because I really found something that I like doing. Well, music is something that I always like doing, but it made me love it more because like we not doing nothing. What can I do to make my life better, or what can I do to make the best side of this? So I just took music more serious with the quarantine, and I got a lot of stuff accomplished, and I got more support, more love.
Now, can you, because I remember we talked about this, can you explain or restate the story that you gave us about your friend that actually thrived outside of the classroom? And as soon as we went into quarantine, he started doing his work and he actually started engaging.
Oh yeah, my friend, he didn't really like going to school because he felt like he had no reason being there, because he felt like I guess he had like a social issue being there. But as soon as quarantine started, like it opened his eyes up, and like him working on schoolwork alone.
Hey, Jalen, do you think you could turn up your microphone or project a little bit? Your volume's kind of low.
Can you hear me now?
That's great.
He just got like more serious because he's doing the work on his own time.
Now, what are some of the questions that you could have? Because obviously, this shows that for some kids, distance learning actually works, and it's more positive than being in the classroom, and it has a better effect on them.
My question is, what can Baltimore City Public Schools do for the kids who have like social issues, and kids who like don't like being around other kids a lot because they feel they have low self-esteem and their mental health isn't all the way there? Like, what can you guys do for that crowd?
Kids that are currently thriving at home and they're engaging and doing the work.
Yeah, that's a great question, Jalen. I mean, I think first, one of the things that, you know, people don't always see is we try to work very hard with our teachers so that they can identify students that are struggling. And then we always have social workers and psychologists and others to kind of step in where we think that it's needed. But at the same time, right, we have seen people like yourself or your peers that you're talking about that have thrived in this area or in this time. And I think it's frankly going to lead us that no matter whenever we go back to a traditional school, we got to have this option for students that really are thriving here more than they are inside the school building. I think, we talk about options for families a lot. I think it's options for students as well, especially at the high school level, because sometimes high school is tough socially. I mean, frankly, it's almost always tough socially. Let's just talk real. But there's going to be some young people that are going to do much better in this virtual space. And so I think one of the changes that will occur long term is this being an option for high school students. If it's a different school, if it's an evening school, if it's an online academy, I don't know how, but I feel like that is what will eventually come out of it. And hopefully that will help a lot of our young people that you're talking about.
Personally, I can say that being away from the classroom has been amazing within my senior year, and I've been advocating for this. I was like, we should really make sure that distance learning becomes some sort of permanent. Like maybe even if it's just one day, it almost feels like a rat race. It's like every single day. It's like it's too much, and we realized that I feel like this should be like a societal thing. Like everyone needs that break, and getting that break, I saw an improvement in myself because I felt like okay, this is a little bit chill. I can work from home. I can work at my own pace. So I really think that's great. Now, another question that we had was CTE students. It's really, really sad to think that there are kids out here with passion, whether it be in carpentry, whether it be in automotive or whatever CTE pathway that they chose, that they literally cannot, or it's absolutely difficult to work from home. How do we expect a student with zero carpentry equipment to make a door because they just feel inspired? How are we going to accommodate the CTE students?
Yeah, it's another great question. I'm going to ask Dr. Pfeiffer to come in. She is our Executive Director of College and Career Readiness. And there's probably not a great answer to it, Bryce, but I think it's another thing that for the last few months we've been trying to think through.
Absolutely. I'm glad to be with everyone. Rachel Pfeiffer, ED of College and Career Readiness, and we are thinking creatively about what CTE can look like. We are working with our teachers, trying to get a variety of different ways that we can get virtual simulations for our students, that we can, in some cases, we are actually even exploring now some virtual reality options to see how we can get students some of that hands-on experience. We're also looking at some practical things like trying to deliver kits at home for students to be able, I may not be able to deliver you a door, right? But there are maybe some smaller things that we would be able to give students so that they could continue the hands-on work at home. The other thing that certainly we are keeping an eye on is whether there might be opportunities as conditions improve, we hope in the future to bring in small groups of students and maybe think through how they could very carefully, very safely be able to do some work with the equipment in their classrooms. But we're thinking through how we can, we can support our students at home with as many virtual and potentially even hands-on opportunities as we can.
That's amazing because honestly, I would hate to really see that anyone lose their passion. I have a passion myself, so I would hate for anyone to just lose that because they simply cannot work on it, so they become unmotivated. So I'm glad that you guys are thinking about alternatives. But with that being said, that is my time. I'd like to thank you all for answering some of the questions, Chief Davis, Ms. Pfeiffer, everyone that's been on. Thank you so much because this is one of the things that needs to happen. You have to speak with the students. You have to understand what they're feeling. You have to allow them to ask questions because we are a family and that is what families do. So I'm going to pass it back to Mr. Riley, who's right above me, and he's going to close it out.
Thank you, Bryce, so much. You were excellent. They were great questions from the students. And as you mentioned, we have to give our students space to express themselves. Everything we do in Baltimore City Public Schools is for the betterment of the students of Baltimore City. So for them to have a space on the floor is great. And Bryce, we wish you luck. Not luck, we wish you well because you're going to do great. and you're going to represent us and yourself, most importantly, very well. Thank you, Bryce, for everything.
Thank you.
All right, Chief Davis, before we go, we do have some adult questions. There's been quite a bit of chatter. While folks love to hear from our students, there are at least 3 things that they want to know from us. So I'm going to pose those to you. The first one revolves around, will classes only be 30 minutes in duration? Will they be 45? As we look forward to scheduling, what does that look like?
Yeah, we still have to finalize it. And I think on July 28th, our community will see, right, sample student schedules and sample teacher schedules as to what we're thinking, right? I think what we have to understand at Class to Be is, yeah, there needs to be time where there is live teaching. And to me, it's probably closer to 45 minutes around live teaching. And then there's got to be some, right, what we kind of call asynchronous work. And again, right, I mean, if that's not a word you use too much, and let me just be super clear, before March 13th, I surely did not use that word, but asynchronous kind of just means students working independently, or the teacher is not there at the time. So I feel like there's going to be, anywhere from 35, 40, 45 minutes of teaching, and then students are going to either be working in small groups. Maybe they'll have a personalized learning program, right? There's probably a lot of families that might be familiar with iReady. Or there's something for our youngest students called Amplify Online. Let me just say this, right? If you have a youngster that is between kindergarten and 2nd grade, if you don't know what Amplify Online is, I need for you to figure that out. And we will help you figure that out because it is a great resource. It is our youngest students as they begin to learn to read that really stick in my mind that we've got to do everything we can for them. And so we will make sure that our families that have our youngest students can get, like you said, Andre, probably 30, 45 minutes of live synchronous instruction. And then there is some time where young people and if families can help out, right, where the asynchronous work happens, where it's students working on their assignments, where they're working on programs that they've been given, or potentially in small groups with teachers. We saw a lot of positivity in small groups, so that's live too, but instead of having the whole group, right, it might be 10 minutes with 5 or 6 students and then rotate with another 5 or 6 students, or maybe the next day it's a couple more groups. And I feel like every subject will get something like that. And we will detail all that out on July 28th. So you can see what an English language arts or a reading lesson will look like. And so it's not just going to be 30 minutes. It's got to be longer than that. But it will be a combination of kind of independent work and then live work in front of a teacher.
All right. Thank you for that, Chief Davis. There was a lot of conversation on our comment section about that. Secondly, from our folks who are participating via our Spanish language translators, they've submitted a question. What does this all mean for kindergarten students? Students who, if they did not have pre-K experience, this is their first entree into education, and they're getting it at a time where a lot has changed.
Yeah. Andre, I do want to go back just for that last question because I feel like I want to be super clear, right? That 45 minutes, that work that's done live and then potentially without the teacher, that's really per subject, right? I don't want families walking away saying, oh, it's 45 minutes every day. No, that's per subject, right? And so that'll happen a few different times depending on the grade level. So I just wanted to clarify that in case I wasn't clear. Our kindergarten students, you're going to get me down like one of my big areas of emphasis, right? Kindergartners, there are studies that show that I believe it's by the end of your kindergarten year, you should be able to rattle off, I think it was 51 letters in a minute, right? If you're given letters like in a flashcard situation to show that you're on pace to be able to read. And students that weren't able to do that are significantly behind, and it just worsens until you get to the 10th grade. And so I say that because we're going to concentrate on things like that we know kindergartners need. Right? There's a whole lot you could teach, but research will show us and has told us what kindergartners need the most. Yes, it's going to be hard in a virtual space, but please understand that the professionals that are looking into this and that are creating the curriculum are going to emphasize those things for our youngest students, right? And it is about making sure you know your letters when you're in kindergarten. And I cannot emphasize this enough, right? And yes, families are going to be in different situations. Some of them are going to struggle more than others, but like we've got to get to our families so if they can just do the basic things of showing a letter and having students being able to read that off, right? It's no different than when you're in the third grade or second grade or fourth grade or whenever it came to you on multiplication facts, you see 6 and 5, you say 30, right? You see that letter, you've got to be able to say it. And so we're going to do everything we can. I think even before that, though, right, there has to be that month of September to get students used to school and get them back acclimated, especially in a virtual space. So we're gonna take it in the way that young people need, so that they get used to that virtual space. But in the end, right, we will make sure that our youngest students get a lot of support.
Thank you, Chief Davis. And finally, our last question of the evening. This comes to us from Twitter. In fact, it came about a day ago. There's been a lot of discussion about the virtual academy, establishing one, who it may impact, what's the planning look like. Is there any insight you could share on where the district is as far as establishing that concept?
Yeah, I think the main thing, Andre, is we know we need a type of virtual academy. I think we're trying to figure out, right, how we can do this responsibly with our teachers or with some type of online program. We know that there's going to be families that aren't comfortable coming back when we go to the hybrid space. And so I think those details are probably the ones that we are more short on, but at the same time, I want to assure the public that we know that option has to be there. And there's a lot of different ways to do it between groups that have done the virtual learning already before we got into this situation, and we can learn a lot from them, to our teachers that have done a really good job, to figuring out different innovative ways where students and families can stay at home and in the end, right, still get the benefit when some other students go hybrid. So honestly, I feel like that's the area that we have probably the least details, and we're going to have to provide that to the public in the coming months. And I'll say one other thing about that, Andre. I feel like even though we said, at the beginning, one of the reasons we're slowing down the transition to hybrid is because we know we need time. We also need time to figure out that virtual academy, right? So when we say hybrid, we know that virtual option has to continue to be there, and we just need more time to knock that out and figure it out.
Thank you, Chief Davis, for that. And thank you for your time here this evening. You handled a variety of questions from a variety of different individuals on a variety of different topics. We appreciate you. We appreciate our experts. Most certainly, we appreciate Bryce Taylor and our students for joining us this evening. There are many questions still coming in on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Do not despair, because we won't get to them here in our live space. If you have questions, know that we are downloading them from all three platforms. We're doing our best to answer them. However, some of the best detail will come at the board meeting on Tuesday, July 28th, when we roll out our plan. Our superintendent, our CEO rather, will be available. Chief Davis and all the leadership team will be there. So we encourage you to log on to the board meeting, watch the presentation, and make sure that you're well informed. But the process won't end at the board meeting. We'll still be seeking your feedback. And we still want you to visit www.baltimorecityschools.org/reopening to get the latest information about our progress towards a bright new school year in 2021. Chief Davis, before we go, is there anything that you want to share with our family?
I mean, I think maybe the main thing I would say, maybe two things. First, I want to thank Bryce and Jalea and Brenaya and Jalen. Too often this is an adult conversation, and for myself included, hearing from students and the different questions they have and their experiences, we really should be doing that more. And so I want to thank them for stepping up to the plate and being just great about what their experiences have been. Bryce did a great job emceeing and fielding the questions as well. So first of all, just thank you to them, and thank you to all of our students who have given us feedback and really stepped up with their thoughts to help us with what we're going to do in the fall. And then the second thing is kind of where I begin, frankly, which is, yes, we're going to do better, we're going to do much better, and we're going to have a better experience when it comes to September 8th. But at the same time, I want to appreciate our families that have stuck with us. And sometimes if there are harshest critics, well, we're going to learn from it. So I thank them for being honest about their experiences and what they expect, and just know that we are listening to it. And that's why we've made the decisions we have, and we will continue to listen, and they're appreciated more than they'll ever know.
Excellent. Well, Chief Davis, we thank you for filling in for our CEO, Dr. Sonia Brookins Santelises. We hope that you all will join us here at 6 p.m. next Thursday. We heard you. We were hosting these originally at 2 p.m. and we took your feedback that said, hey, we work during the day. We have things to do during the day, but we want to participate. So we moved it towards the evenings. And I'm glad to say that we're going to do all we can to make sure that you continue to have a voice at the table. On behalf of the Baltimore City Public Schools, I'm its Director of Communications, Andre Riley. Thank you to my communications team and Chief Davis again. Y'all have a great day, and we'll see you next week.